Hello, my name is Brant Hunt. My channel is Discerning What is True. I'm reading from a particular book, an e-book that is, our Common Destiny, speaking about communitarianism. This is by the author named Nikki Raapana. It's Raapana. Reading from chapter 2 of this particular book. She's trying to warn us all of what's this whole thing communitarianism and the buzzwords they use. And Tom DeLuise is another gentleman who's trying to deal with this whole issue also, which I have his book. But what I want to do is read this book because it basically gives you a complete overlay of what's going on. So let's go to chapter 2 here. And thank you for being here. My channel is Discerning What is True. I am on YouTube. I am on Facebook. And I'm on Odyssey by the same name. Thank you for being here. Hope that this will glean some information to you. And so here we go. Chapter 2 is called, that is, community policing. There's a quote here from the Seattle Department of Neighborhood Action Teams, that is the Seattle Cops meeting in 1997 to 1999. This is what they say: don't tell us what we can't do, just tell us how to get the job done. See, so you have people who are working to do this, who are actually causing harm to everybody. You see? So again, this is how people are being seduced. They don't have any idea, and people are working for their own demise. Their own demise, you see. So here we go. Community developers have their own police force, folks. They make sure everyone in the new global community follows the new behavior modification laws. Some faith-based peacekeepers are soldiers trained in urban warfare. Others are social workers with PhDs. The mother of all homeland crime fighting machine is the global community policing. Community policing is a statement, quote, community policing is the philosophy that promotes organizational strategies which support the strategic use or the systematic use of partnerships and problem-solving techniques to proactively address the immediate condition that gives rise to public safety issues such as crime, social disorder, and fear of crime. The Department of Justice. In almost every big city, suburb, rural area, and little town in America, you can find brand new cops serving a brand new purpose. The Office of Community-Oriented Policing Service. They're called cops. That's right. Was created under the U.S. Department of Justice in 1994. Do you remember that? I remember some of the ads that were talking about cops. Federal cops are a new military trained auxiliary unit attached to local police departments. Other acronyms are community police teams, community police officers, so it's CPT, it's CPO, and others. Here's a quote also. That is Bush, that is George Bush, that is W.W. Bush, lets the U.S. government spy on callers without courts, by James Risen and Earl Lichtbaum, Lichtbalu, from the New York Times, December 16, 2005. By 2006, COPS, C-O-P-S, all caps, had invested $7.5 billion to add 130,000 militarized police to more than 12,000 American law enforcement agencies. They have provided almost 4,000 agencies with more than $1 billion in technology so far. That's in 2006, folks. That's how many years ago? 17 years ago. According to the Joint Technological Report published by the Department of Justice in 1998, the DOJ merged with the Department of Defense. Holy crap. The Department of Justice merged with the Department of Defense at least 3 years before the September 11, 2001 attacks. This is all illegal. This is illegal, not legal, illegal. According to the Joint Technology Report published by the Department of Justice in 1998, the DOJ merged with the Department of Defense at least 3 years before the September 11, 2001 attacks. They combined information, technologies, and equipment and distributed leftover surplus Cold War weaponry to local American police force. Do you know that? Yes, I do. I remember them here locally in the town, in my county, having got a surplus tank, a military tank, folks. It's becoming very clear that we are the enemy, that those that oppose this. And as they continue to put their dragnet across people, gradually people are going to see this. Okay? So let's continue. The COPS has their own boot camps too. The nationwide network of regional community policing institutes. It's all based upon regional, folks. It's what it's all about. See, they're going to destroy the states here. It's just going to be regions. And I recall, I think there's actually, is there 12 regions of the country? I think that's correct. Don't hold me to it, though. So they have their own boot camps. Their nation network are what they call regional community policing. It's what's called RCPIs. And the International Community Policing Consortium train you police for the new role as global enforcers. Global enforcers. Sorry, kind of had to change the color here so I can help you out. Help myself out here. The RCBIs and the International Community Consortium train new police for their new role as global enforcers. Top advisors for COP training programs are former KGB agents or spies and Israeli Mosaic, CIA and MI6 special forces. Dr. John Coleman talks about these groups too, folks. But he didn't know this was coming, or did he? In 2004, the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department and TrainCops.com presented community threat assessments in Orlando, Florida. Do you remember the flying of military aircraft that was actually in the city of Tampa, Florida? See what they're doing? They're using this as it's a psychological tool. You see, you are the enemy. And these dumb bastards, these stupid military people who do this are causing it. You see, they're the ones who are causing harm. Valentin Asilenko, Colonel KGB Colonel I'll spell it to you, Asilenko, lives in Virginia where he provides security and counterintelligence consulting services. His clients include the U.S. government agencies and corporations. Do you understand this is a former KGB agent doing this, folks? During the KGB career, that is his career, he served in the United States, Cuba, and China on the Soviet team that negotiated the Soviet withdrawal from Afghanistan. His success as a KGB intelligence officer operating within the United States is discussed in the book Washington Station. Cops, here's another thing. See, this is what people are doing. They're volunteering. So all these killings are done, which are not killings. It's just acting. But what they're doing is causing people to be more fearful. So now cops, COPS, are assigned to high schools and neighborhood councils. The way the bond service works is that monetary value is placed on the alleged crime and then factored the way banks factor their money. In other words, turn this thing off here. Sorry about that. In other words, if a person is convicted of a felony, the value would be $4 million. The county, city, state then multiplies it by 10. So the bond that goes out for sale with the prisoner name and social security number is a short-term promissory note. It offers at $40 million. Perhaps, you see, this is sick. Perhaps an investor will offer 40% of the $40 million or $16 million. Once the promissory note of the face value of $40 million reaches the bank, it is then multiplied again by 200 to 300% and is sold as bank securities. Lynn Shamatz says this, owner of the prison system in America, the American Bulletin. This is May, June 2008. Her last name is SCHMALTZ. You do know that the prison systems here in the United States are privately run. They're not publicly owned. It's about making money, people. My introduction to this new kind of nicer global policing was in 1999. I saw police at the first neighborhood planning meeting I attended in March of that year. I sat with them at the back table and never ever occurred to me to think that they were any different than any other cops. My grandfather was a cop and my dad was a career Army soldier. I am comfortable and automatically respectful around uniforms. I didn't wonder what they were doing there. I didn't start asking why they were at so many meetings until August 30th, 1999, when one SPD community service officer told me she had just received my file. We live in a target home. Government inspectors say they require inside access to all homes so that they can determine if the housing meets the international building codes. See, this is a code deal. All these codes are done for this reason too, folks. Another red flag. The Fourth Amendment is an identifier barrier to this need. A communitarian government assumes the right to prevent others from living in a poor or run-down dwelling without permission. They've overstepped their bounds, folks. If a dwelling cannot be brought up to code, the owner faces compounding fines of up to $150 per day per violation. If the owner cannot pay the fines, the communitarian seize the homes under public nuisance abatement. The barrier to the whole program is getting inside target homes without a legal search warrant. Seattle was unable to gain legal access to homes targeted for best use abatement by light rail planning communities. So cops, that is, planned and executed an innovative enforcement procedure. A cops committee identified all shared housing in Seattle as rooming, that is, and under their particular priority got permission to do this. Under Nordico, Nordica, who went to a very progressive high school, the first time I heard the word WTO was when SPD officer Dornay brought it up during an interview I had with him on October 9th, 1999. These people are no longer swearing to the Constitution, folks. They're swearing to the New World Order, the WTO, the World Trade Organization. According to SPD Chief Dornay, nobody at the interagency inspection was in command of the team, and the Dawson team search warrant was part of the WTO training exercise. See, this is what they do. They always do this training. They've been doing this with this whole thing in 2020. They want to see how you react. They want to see if you've got any guts. They want to see if you're going to stand up against them. And when no one says no, basically, this means you're giving your consent. Because when you stand silently and say no, or not even say anything, you're consenting to them. You are consenting to them. That's how they look at it. At first, I assumed it was another acronym for another obscure Seattle city government agency. There were so many of them. I was surprised and confused when I explained it when it met the WTO. That stumped me. I couldn't see what our neighborhood plan had to do with world trade. No one in Seattle wanted to explain to me that community policing in our international program that enforces communitarian laws. It was actually 2 months after the Dawson raid. Anyone with a TV heard something about the WTO. Police actions and inept local leadership throughout the Seattle industry were shown around the world, but of course the WTO was never identified as communitarianism. Communitarian law is still not a street topic, folks. It's amazing that none of the anti-WTO activists we spoke with during the battle in Seattle, if you recall that, told us about the WTO communitarian law. The entire anti-WTO movement rhetoric relies on the dialectical argument between capitalism and communism. So they're not even they're stooges themselves. They don't know they don't know the whole ramification of what's going on. We personally like the anarchists from London, but their attack on corporate property assisted in creating the necessary chaos that justified declaring a state of emergency. Yes, they're useful tools. They're useful tools. That's what they are. They don't know that. They think they're fighting for what's right. In reality, they're tools. Today, it's clear to us that many activists are communitarians. What a shock to realize they're fighting themselves. Yes. Their role, they're going to, yes, it's really sad. They're actually causing not only harm to others, but they're going to harm their own lives eventually. Their role appears to be to heighten the street conflicts between communitarian police and unaware protesters. Their riots justify more police troops and greatly protection of the international participants in the supernatural world meetings. There must be chaos and disorder before the communitarians can offer their solutions to our problems, you see. Problem, reaction, solution. If there were not thousands of protests in the street, there would be no justifiable reason for so many new international police wearing gas masks and bulletproof vests. The Marxist idea of street protests hides the real global agenda behind a cloud of tear gas and rubber bullets. You see. That is, as we see on, a lack of good behavior, such as not serving when those told you to volunteer, not helping the cops, or not attending mandatory community workshops or meetings, is also a potential crime, depending on how badly the communitarians need your assets. They're looking for your consent, folks. That's what they're doing. Not limited to property damage or anything else resembling property damage, crimes against the community are a continual evolving field of international law. So she shares this particular area called American law versus communitarian law. American police swear to protect and defend our constitutions. Community policing are committed to promoting a sustainable community which one sounds constitutional. Our Declaration of Independence acknowledges a creator as the source of unalienable rights that governments are formed to secure. This acknowledgement was the very foundation of the Constitution of the United States of America. What are those unalienable rights with which we are endowed? They may be described in many ways, but English jurist Sir William Blackstone wrote in 1766. These may be reduced to three principal articles. The right of personal security, that's your life, the right of personal liberty, and the right of private property. America's written Constitution was to protect and secure God-given individual rights to life, liberty, and property. If we ever allow this foundation to be eroded and lose faith that these rights are a gift directly from God to each individual, then we lose the basis of the greatness of this miracle of America. Conservation easements pick away. I'm changing a little bit of subject here. I'm actually moving down further. Conservation easements pick away at the borders of private property, along streams and new public trails. Yes, that's the whole thing with the thing here is taking place is rail trails. You know, I met someone and I just couldn't believe how much they were brainwashed. They used to be what they called railroads that used to cross, and what's happened simply is they're no longer in business. When the country was somewhat an economic power, but what's happened simply is it's no longer that. You see, so the railroad's gone out of business, and so their tracks have been taken off, and now there's streams, not streams, but trails, so people can ride their bikes out in the middle of nowhere and also walk. But what they do is just like the railroads did, they took a percentage of the property. Now they've pulled back, but reality simply is that they've taken now private property, you see. Habitat and species restoration calls for a classification of all private land designated as necessary to see division complete. Do you see this bullshit? It's been going on for a long time, that particular issue, a long time. They can assume that something's on your land and call it, and then say they just confiscate your land. Building permits must be pre-approved by professional global to local developers to ensure they fit in with their vision. Revised noise ordinance establish new limits for lively or loud behavior. Because people don't want to be responsible. This is why this is happening. They don't self-govern themselves. And this is how they're using it. Permits are required for even small gatherings, you see. Large parties require background checks of all the hosts and hiring of licensed security guards. Airline traffic is subject to monitoring, that is. Hunting, fishing, and gun laws change so fast, who knows what they are. All wilderness camping is monitored. Check-ins are required before traveling into designated backcountry wilderness areas. GPS is recommended. Americans must ask permission from their regulators to ride off-road motor vehicles. Registration is required on every vehicle, running or not. No junk cars allowed. Violators are towed. The states have many new requirements for upgrading to a national driver's license, too. Many citizens already submit body fluids to corporate agencies. All previously restricted personnel information has been gathered into a giant database. This includes all public school records, academia tests, altitude evaluation, behavior, and criminal records, teachings, opinions, and physical and mental checkups. They have a whole file on you folks. The public schools have completed the transition to a communitarian system. Get your kids out of school, folks. Get them out. You're destroying their lives. Teach them yourself. The next generation of American children will think the United States was conceived in communitarianism. Correct. American children are required to perform mandatory volunteer community service in order to graduate from public schools. Convicted criminals are regularly sentenced to perform community service. Yes, yes. First example, I'll give you this example just because I heard something last night. This is what this is about. Give me the already accepted. A former quarterback for the University of Georgia quarterback got drunk, and the Atlanta, I think it's near Atlanta, somewhere near Atlanta, they picked him up. And what they're saying simply is he probably will not get a felony, but he will have to provide some type of volunteer community service, you see. So convicted criminals are regularly sentenced to perform community service, as well as pay fines and do jail time. Communitarian law requires communitarian service penalties. Americans learned their new requirement for global citizenship without ever being told their national law was abolished in the 1990s. Most Democrats were completely clueless that communitarianism fueled Clinton's ultimate third way. The same communitarian fear premise works for helmet laws. Yeah, you can't ride a bicycle too. You got to have a helmet on. What? Anyway, the crime is see how they penetrate in your lives. You do these things and you immediately obey them. You acquiesce to them. You see them as the authorities when you are the authority. The crime is maybe crashing into something and maybe it's cracking your head open and maybe contributing to the rising cost of health care insurance. Yeah, I remember someone telling me that. It's unbelievable. Continue. So it's also, she puts an article here, international police training. American community police are trained to assassinate potential suspects. This is a serious problem with international cooperation. U.S. criminal law is based on the presumption of innocence of the accused. In USA, the police are not hired by the people to become agents for a foreign military power, nor do they have the power to act as judge, jury, and executor. Israel was founded by Eastern European communists, British Fabians, and religious fanatics. Israel's political and justice system bears no resemblance to the American system of law. U.S. law was designed to protect private citizens from invasive governments, agents, and other thieves. Israeli law was designed to protect some of the residents living in Israel and target others. They stole the land. The level of protection from armed attacks by militarized police a citizen in Israel can claim depends on where they stand in the 16 different legal recognized racial classifications. Persons of 100% Arab descent hold no claim to fair, equal treatment under the Israeli legal system. By the way, legal is not the law, folks. It's just a modern word. It has nothing to do with the law. Israel is the harbor of the anti-terrorism, and the U.S. Capitol Police Chief Terrence W. Gaynor. After returning from Israel, Gaynor has trained his officers to shoot a potential suicide bomber in the head rather than aim for the chest. See, as they originally were taught, because shooting the chest could designate a suicide vest. Last year, Perry, the Israeli commander of the bomb disposal unit and a former member of Mossad, you see what's going on here? Israel's Central Intelligence Agency briefed more than 425. These people are actually coming in and training the troops here, training the officers from New Jersey, New York, and Pennsylvania as a conference at Princeton University. This month, Levy and Perry will be in Chicago, said Sarah Harkowitz, Israeli experts teach police on terrorism. Training programs prompt policy shifts. Washington Post, June 12, 2005. What kind of policy shifts were prompted after American police were trained by Israeli experts? Perhaps the most obvious change can be seen in this way. They're going to take you out. They're not going to quote unquote shoot you, maybe so you can maybe you can live afterwards. They're gonna kill you. You see. Connecting the global to the local. In 1995, Housing and Urban Development. This has been going on for a long time. Distributed software called Community 2020 to cities involved in a program called Weed and Seed. Do you remember that? I do. I do. American cities have been building community maps of hotspots since the 1980s. With the help of Community 2020 and Community Police and HUD, use data gathered from neighborhood watch groups. So you don't need to have that, folks. See, this is what gets you in trouble. To identify and pull bad weeds. After pulling the bad weeds, they plant good seeds. At first, HUD and cops focused primarily on drug activity, gangs, and violence in HUD prospects. By the late 1990s, they had worked their way into suburbs, urban middle class, and university neighborhoods. It was decided that logging each American information into the Global 2020 database would help local planners root out problems and write better plans for the future. So they're spying on you. The use of Geographic Information System, the GIS, was easily adapted to more extensive plans. Gathering information is justified by the need for a healthy, sustainable community. They always do that, folks. Seattle, a very progressive city, is a great example of these early sustainable communities. It was one of the first to test the preliminary COPS fusions programs in 1999. Almost 10 years before David Goldman began teaching sustainable development as an environmental science at Nova High School, a private firm called Sustainable Seattle was a presenter at the UN Earth Summit in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil in 1992. Rick Krachets, spelled Krchelis, a Sustainable Seattle board member, community-oriented policing service, COPS, is a federal political-driven police force forcing issues in every community, from England's big society to U.S. community development, community-oriented police help with strategy planning in the communities they are serving. In 1982, Police Foundation research brief describing police strategy to reduce crime or reduce citizens' fear of crime. It includes encouraging police efforts to create a neighborhood organization that would involve citizens in solving local problems. So when you volunteer for this, you're putting a rope around your neck. Rebuilding community spirit. Neighborhood organizations are a very important piece in the sustainable development plans. The communitarian police are encouraged to access like-minded locals to create neighborhood associations. We don't have to look far to find the same UN phrases used by police around the world. We can start with our next door neighbors to the north, you see, in Canada. By balancing traditional and non-traditional policing roles, the RCMP ensures both short and long-term outcomes for the community and individuals. These outcomes include safeguarding personal rights and freedoms, reduction of crime and the fear of crime, crime prevention and economic security and integrity, and social development. That's the RCMP. I think that stands for Royal Canadian Military Police, but I might be wrong, so don't hold me to that. Nothing happens by accident in the communitarian world. The RCMP has established performance plans under three key priorities: sustainable communities, corporate governments, and environmental stewardship. As what were the Canadian Mounties' key priorities in 2007 through 2009? Continue working with the Community Policing Service to identify partnership for sustainable development. Focus on those problems and the police respond to them, you see. By 2010, police respond to community problems, embrace the use of Israeli-owned drones to help cities. Do you see what's going on here? Your government is allowing this to happen because no one knows what's going on because there's rapid, enormous things taking place. So what is the quote unquote a community problems that is using a Israeli-owned drone? What is it doing here for? You see, they're transforming this country. to help cities and rural areas to monitor global citizenship. You see, this is a spying agency. We've seen over in Iraq and Afghanistan where troops have needed eye in the sky. It became an enormous beneficial for them, Voss said. These same qualities can help cities too. See, they're going to spot. That's what they're doing. You're the enemy. That's based upon Miami-Dade police buys drones in 2010 from the Miami U-Times. It's December 6, 2010. In Great Britain, there was a few minor glitches, but nothing too serious. Britain top police officers are reviewing the controversial shoot-to-kill policy after its first use ended in the gunning down of an innocent man, the Guardian had learned. See what you're doing here, folks? See what you're doing? Don't you see the differences a lot of times with cops these days? They escalate the issue. They always escalate it. They're not interested in peaceful consideration. You see what's going on? Rapid developments in enhanced bilateral cooperation has established a tight network of law enforcement professionals from around the globe. We will enhance bilateral cooperation and institutional contact. We will also enhance the capability of criminal justice and investigative system and promote the rule of law through international training programs at regional institutions such as the International Law Enforcement Academy in Budapest, the International Judicial Training Center, Middle and Eastern European Police Academy, and the Similar Administration of Justice Institute for the Western Hemisphere. We will work together at the UN Commission on Sustainable Development and other relevant bodies, including the Global Environmental Facility, to encourage the world at large in the challenge of caring for the global environment. It's all for the Mother Earth, folks. They bought you into that bullshit New Age crap. You see, that's the religion, you see. We will devote special attention to cooperative development and implement regulations on vehicle safety. You name it, folks. There are all kinds of rules. And we'll continue here. It says, depending upon the design of the particular system, the information collected can include details about the innocent's location, his offenses, the offender, the victim, the property, and the arrestees. These systems can provide a solid foundation for tactical decision-making, strategic planning, offending tracking through the criminal justice system, research and reporting. Localities and states with IBR systems can perform crime mapping, produce annual and special reports. See, this is where all the money is wasted. This is all, they're putting you in a certain box here and respond to an ad hoc request. Some states with IBR maintains internet sites that display standard reports or provide downloadable data reports. Author George Orwell called it a boot stomping on a face forever. I call it a pink pacifier stuck deep into our throats. Whatever we call it is horrendous. We must not allow the out-of-control Department of Homeland Security to impose on us the East German-like police state in the United States, where neighbors are encouraged by Big Brother and Big Sister to inform on their neighbors. We must not accept that the government authorities should heckle us via television screens as we go about our private lives like we are living in Orwell 1984. I'm optimistic that the incoming members of Congress understand the importance of what they have been entrusted with by the American people. But I do hope that those who elected them will watch their actions and their votes in Congress carefully. An early indication will be the upcoming vote on the reauthorization of the Anti-American Patriot Act. Defeating once and for all this police state legislation will be a great way to start. This is in 2011, and the 112th Congress was what Representative Ron Paul. In spite of the whole idea here, the preponderance of evidence to the contrary, many mainstream TV watching Americans believe that our media, they believe them politically. They believe the justice system is basically honest when it's not. The rest believe the alternates are honest. The ones who don't believe, talking heads on the left, watch TV-controlled opposition on the right. All sides are designed to keep the conflict moving towards the need. That's what they're doing. So you can fight against one another. And then they'll lock you both down. So what they're towards a need for a more balanced approach to the big problem. Alternative politicians and media personalities almost never mention the system of global communitarian policing. We're told we have a more communitarian spirit. Yeah, they're basically the people, the local people, basically are given a script and they just read it. That's what they get paid for. In 2009, I wrote an article called Join the Quiet Revolution. I cited a paper published by Cam C. Wong, K-A-M-C. Wong, W-O-N-G, where he says, in the U.S., community policing originated as a quiet revolution seeking recognition in the 70s. It's based upon Kelling, K-E-L-I-G, 1988. Also in Greece, 1989. And has since become a tour de force to be reckoned with in the 90s, based upon Bailey and Shearling in 1997. Rosenbaum, 1994, Corridor, 1989. Community policing in China, continuality and change by Cam C. Wong. Cam C. Wong is a PhD. This is wanted to argue the point I was making about Marxist-based foreign ideology used as a driving force behind American community police. But Dr. Wong would not argue the legality of what he admitted was the communitarian premises for community policing. So ultimately, I ignored him. He then went around the internet commencing on sites that repost my article. On Eleanor Duckworth's site, he said, police is defined as police as a depository and coordinated. Wow. Police is defined by him as a depository and coordinator of social resources. Whoa. Police is also an all-purpose emergency problem solver who is authorized to use coercion, resources to solve problems in the domestic issues. Isn't that remarkable what he says? Police is a depository and coordinator of social resources. So he's the arbiter justice. He's become the judge. Police is also a all-purpose emergency problem solver who is authorized to use coercive resources to solve that problem in a domestic issue. I'm going to read a story here. This is 2010, December 2010. Miami-Dade Police Department is poised to become the first large metro force using drones in its aerial missions. The department finalized a deal to buy a drone called T-Hawk from defense firm Honeywell and officially applied for permission from the Federal Aviation Administration last month to begin flying it around the county. They have no reason to do this, folks. This is intrusion in private property. Let's continue. I'm going to try to go ahead and do this next chapter here, depending on how long it is. So here we go. Chapter 3, ABCD, the Assets-Based Community Development. Again, this is from Nikki Raapana. A communitarian system requires a database of everything. It needs to have, you got to understand this is what they're doing. It needs to have a log of every piece of land, every drop of water, every animal, every insect, every plant, the air above it, the minerals below it, and every individual living on this planet. This is why this is an excuse here. So we hold that our call for increased social responsibilities is not a call for curbing rights. On the contrary, strong rights presume strong responsibilities. This is Amito, again, A-M-I-T-A-I, Etzioni, E-T-Z-I-O-N-I, Informative Education homepage. We continue. What ABCD stands for is Assets-Based Community Development. It's designed by Professors John McKnight and Jody Cressman. It's K-R-E-T-Z-M-A-N. Cressman denies being a communitarian, but his co-author and co-designer McKnight, that is Barack Obama's mentor and signature on his Harvard Law School application, signed the Responsible Communitarian Platform. This is a statement, he says. This is a statement from the Seattle Sustainable. Rather than focus on problems that need to be fixed, assets-based strategies built on individual and community strengths mobilize around a vision for community development. Now, let's go back 2 or 3 years ago when they had all these issues in Portland. It would be interesting to know if anyone lives in Portland to see what is going on in Portland and give address to that, you see. Because I bet you they created the whole thing in Portland. They created these people, the provocateurs, to start this. They destroyed the downtown part of the city, and then they'll come in and say, well, see, we need this in our community. And that's what will be accepted, folks. Continue. As Jody talked, I quickly rescanned my copy of the introduction to his book. When the question and answer time arrived, and I asked him if I was reading his book right. Is this mapping database program? I asked, can people withdraw from it? This is what he said. These aren't real maps, he assured me after I held up my copy and he confirmed he'd written it. He said the part about going door to door, gathering people's information was used figuratively. Communitarians know that times have changed. You see, modern thinkers see beyond personal gain. That is, thanks to the war on terror and Hurricane Katrina. If you remember what took place there, it was another issue, a real live deal with Homeland Defense, Homeland Security. Some people finally grew up. They pulled together. Now we all give back to the place that nourishes us. Today, we are happy to be assigned to a new kind of volunteerism. Again, they're looking for your consent here, folks. That's what volunteer is. You're volunteering. Well, we'll all help rebuild a global to local communitarian community. It's always global, folks. It's always global. It's this big idea. But it starts at the small towns, in the small communities. And it's all this beautiful language. It's pie in the sky, folks. That's what it is. Pie in the sky language. So we all help rebuild a global to local communitarian community. Hidden assets are uncovered during communitarian informational interviews. During HUD, the Housing Urban Development and COPS Crime Prevention Program, they are called knock and talks. In the 1980s, cops went door to door interviewing neighbors and identifying potential problems. The program was modified. It all depended on the neighborhood. In some areas, the developers were interested in enticing corporate industry. A thorough database of all resident skills and abilities was necessary to globally promote the local community vision. The communitarians just keep coming up with nicer ways to do this. Last night in the Anchorage News, local planners asked everyone with a disability or a special need to turn over their living information to the city police in case of emergency. They trust these people, folks. They trust them. They believe it's the best interest of a community at large to be able to identify every individual in their area. People should help. We're all part of the new Homeland Security plan to make America safer. That's why the Department of Homeland Security uses ABCD maps too. It's vital to security. All humans and animals have been designated in corridors. As the data is gathered and disassimilated, all will be assigned to their living quarters. Non-human species are given precedence under communitarian law. They are given much larger portions of space. Human activity in wildlife corridors is regulated. Human beings have been identified as a threat to the planet and are reduced to being either a problem or asset. There are basically two kinds of community assets. One is an employee, the other is a volunteer. All volunteer helper efforts are supervised by the employees. It is impossible to expect a faraway supervisor to actually know every one of the people who lives they control. A safe community keeps a thorough native database map of every individual. Today is a Homeland Security issue. You see, a person that wants to be live and let alone is not going to be able to do that. You see, they're going to be forced to do this type of thing. That's why I refused when they came to my house in 2020. They sent me brochures, they sent me information. We need to know how many people live at your house. We need to know it's based upon the census. So I had two people come to my door and I answered the door. From now on, I will no longer answer the door. That's another key, folks. If someone comes to your house, you speak out to the window. Okay, because if you open that door, if you don't realize it, they could be in your house before you know it, and you cannot no longer be nice and fuzzy friends with these people because they're actually doing it for money. They're doing it to do harm to you, not knowing they're doing it. You see. So if someone comes to your house, and I've had someone come here last year wanting to sell me something. And so I never opened the door. I opened up the window and said, "What can I help you?" And da 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 da. And he says, "I'm here about on behalf of such and such place. We want to help you with your power bills." I said, "No, sir, I'm not interested in your help at all." He kept saying a few things. I said, "Sir, I don't need the services and I don't want them. You're from the government and I don't want anything to do with you." And this is what I said to him. He walked off. So you got to be straightforward with these people. But the key is simply is you see, I don't want it. I don't want your help because I know it's a rope around my neck. When I take something from the government, what happens is I'm putting the rope around my neck, folks. That's why you have to be independent. It's impossible to expect a faraway supervisor to actually know everyone in the person such and such. Anyway, let me go down here. 2003, the United States merged 22 government agencies under the Office of Director of Human Services. Homeland, I said Human Service, sorry, Homeland Security. Homeland Security works closely with the old Federal Emergency Management, FEMA. Both agencies have clear communitarian missions. Under the supremacy of community law, the Homeland Security and FEMA are the lead agencies in any domestic emergency in the United States. Any. The 2005 Katrina response was to exercise their expanded federal leadership over local decision-making networks. They just came in and took it over. You see, they took it over. But they wouldn't allow anybody to give anything to these people, too. You see, they all put them in the Superdome. You remember that? They wouldn't allow them certain food. Some of them were starving. There were people, church groups that wanted to go there and they were turned away. Turning away local assistance while inviting foreign NATO troops, it was a communitarian decision. Are you well aware that Mexico volunteered to send their troops here to Mexico? Did you know that? They sent some to New Orleans, folks. You see what's happening? They're getting you used to seeing foreign troops on your soil. While the world watched in horror, FEMA stopped America from helping each other. Correct. Michael D. Brown, Undersecretary of Homeland Security for Emergency Preparedness and Response and head of the FEMA agency, today urged all fire and emergency service departments not to respond to counties and states affected by Hurricane Katrina without being requested and lawfully, that is, to get assistance from them. Are you aware of this? See, this is a centralized government with its apparatus, enormous apparatus and money that has its own program to do what they're going to do. They don't want your help, you see, because you're in their way. You see, they have a certain, not remedy, but certain way they're going to handle this situation, and they don't need your help because you're a witness to what's going on. You see, this is why they don't want you to be involved in the county level or the state or the city, whatever. So that assistance never got through to the devastated region quickly enough. U.S. seeks more NATO help, that is, on Katrina. That was based upon September 8, 2005. That's 18 years ago. I'm sorry. Yeah. Yes, 18 years ago almost. Not quite, 17. For some unknown reason, 200, this is what I'm saying here, just now it's coming up. 200 Mexican seamen left Mexico City 2 days before NATO ambassadors made their decision. They came here. Among their accomplishments were preparing and serving nearly 160,000 hot meals and performing 660 dental and medical exams. Unarmed since leaving Mexico City on September 7th, the nearly 200 soldiers shook hands Monday with local dignitaries during a ceremony of appreciation before their expected departure early Tuesday from Mexico City. The Army to leave U.S. after historical mission wire service based on September 27th, 2005. That's correct. They came here. See, it's this whole apparatus that you will begin to see other troops here, foreign troops here, and which is what are they doing here? They're not there's no Constitution anymore. You see, even your senators and congressmen, all your congressmen, stand down. They don't object to it. According to NATO, the United States was early test of alliance much heralded NATO response force, NRF, a rapid reaction fighting unit created to allow it to deploy in trouble zones across the globe within a matter of days. Yes. Much like the operations in Bosnia and Iraq, Katrina created serious issues with the no-bid contract idea. Chris Matthews, 80% of the $1.5 billion that has been let out in contracts for recovery efforts down in the Gulf has gone to no-bid contracts. Do you see this? Debating FEMA no-bid contracts, Congressman King and Thompson's play hardball with MSNBC Matthews, updated, that is, on September 27, 2005. So anybody that gives a bid, they get it. You get the contract. There's no bids, period. Whoever's got, yeah, we'll give it to you. What is it, 10 trillion, 10 million, 10 billion, whatever. Continue. From 1982 to 84, during the Reagan administration, Colonel Oliver North assisted FEMA in drafting its civil defense preparation. Didn't know he was a little con, did you? Details of these plans emerged during the 1987 Iran-Contra scandal. They included executive orders providing for suspension of the Constitution, the imposition of martial law, internment camps, and the turning over of government to the president and FEMA. A Miami Herald article on July 5th, 1987 reported that the former FEMA director, Louis Giffria, Deputy John Brinkenhoff, that is Brinkerhoff, handled the martial law portion of the planning. The plan was said to be similar to one of Mrs. Giffri's had developed earlier to combat a national uprising by black militants. It provided for the detention of at least 21 million American Negroes in assembling centers on relocation camps. Today, Mr. Brinkenhoff is with the highly influential ANSER Institution, that's ANSER, Institute for Homeland Security, following a request by the Pentagon in January that the U.S. military be allowed the option of deploying troops on American streets. The Institute in February published a paper by Mr. Brinkenhoff arguing the legality of this. There is no legality of it, folks. U.S. troops are not permitted to be deployed, but they were. Maybe the National Guard, which is actually run by the state governor, yes, but not by the U.S. military, you see. See if people are awake or aware. Foundations are in place for martial law in the U.S. by Rick Goldstein, July 27, 2002, the Sydney Morning Herald stated. After the quote-unquote terrorist attacks in the USA in 2001, the U.S. government declared an international war on terror. In 2002, President Bush listed his priorities in the war. Number 2 was rebuilding America. Bush emphasized a nationwide spirit of volunteerism. He introduced new requirements for citizenship. Hardly anyone noticed. No one knew. Because they don't tell you these things, folks, unless you were getting the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times. In Iraq, U.S. soldiers host block watch meetings and train locals to report any suspicious stranger or noise. The youth system in Iraq is communitarian in makeup. And the best part of it, see, their soldiers are no longer American soldiers, folks. They never have been for a long time. That's why we go into countries and we steal stuff and we overthrow their governments, because we're not doing it on behalf of the government. We're doing it on behalf of the most powerful people in this world. They have money and they want the oil, whatever those resources are, even though there's plenty of oil here in the United States. There is no oil shortage, folks. You see, it's all a lie. The bigger the lie it is, the more people are gullible to it. And they keep saying it all the time. Anyway, and the best part is all the data goes into one big connected database that will ensure the government global development program runs smoothly and seamlessly, crossing all former barriers. The same DOJ, COP, who created the new enforcement programs, Gil Kerlikowske, KERLIKOWSKE, went on to establish nationwide fusion centers for local police departments. In 2009, he was appointed by President Obama's drug czar. Czar. The word czar has nothing to do with the United States, folks. The word czar is from Russia. Kurakowski's ideas for a comprehensive planning database were tested in 5 American cities in 2000. Seattle neighborhood was one of those tests. The multi-state anti-terrorist information exchange called Matrix pilot project leverage proves technology to assist criminal investigations by implementing factual data analysis from existing data sources and integrating disparate data from many types of web-enabled storage systems. This technology helps to identify, develop, and analyze terrorist activities and other crimes for investigative leads. Information accessible, including criminal history records, driver's license data, vehicle registration records, and incarceration correction records, including digitalized photo lines with significant amounts of public data records. This capability will save countless investigative hours and drastically improve the opportunity to successfully resolve the investigations. The ultimate goal is to expand this capacity to all states. U.S. Senator Michael B. Enzi, ENZI from Wyoming, in a letter to Wyoming citizen James Dobson on 1/10/05, Senator Enzi, like George Soros, is a close associate of Dr. Amitatal and AMITAI, ETZIO, and Zontin, who's as far as I can tell, is a Jew. You see. Data gathering for the GIS was a priority to Seattle city planners. Seattle Community Police Officer Cindy Grenard suggests the city start files on persons identifying rooming and boarding houses. It's none of their business, folks. It's none of their damn business who lives where. An intern was hired to input the new data in 1997. Their goal was to utilize the 4-step SARA crime prevention model. SARA stands for Scanning, Analyzing, Analysis, Response, and Assessment. 5 phases of SARA requirements are identifying the players and scanning all the available data by the hotspot into the GIS. The whole program runs on data. If there's no data to scan, SARA fails to produce good analysis. Responding to potential for crimes depends entirely on scanned information. Few took notice during the WTO battle in Seattle when the mayor blamed the orchestrated street chaos on the city's lack of adequate data. Yes. I learned the existence of the R&B community from Susan Coble, C-O-B-L-E, of the Seattle Mayor Citizen Service Bureau. Susan refused to take my complaint against the city. She insisted warning me about some new plans the city had for our housing project. These plans were for new mandatory city directors, that is to eventually boot them out. Eventually, I started getting a lot of letters telling me that the R&B files didn't exist. Every response claim by the CSO, Michael Crooks, I want a name, never said she had my personal file. Crooks said she didn't carry a 3-ring binder with the label R&B that day. Eventually, everyone in the R&B community quit talking to me or went away. Susan Coble, our liaison to the mayor, quit 2 months later. Veronica Jackson, who flowered her speech with terms that led us directly to the communitarian guru, Amitav Etzizonia, was last seen giving R&B files to the Compass agencies in early 2000. Compass, C-O-M-P-A-S-S, was partially designed by Gil Kurskowski at the Department of Justice. You remember him. Friendly community cop Kurskowski was also the director of grants for cops in 1999. The city of Seattle applied to be a pilot test city for Compass. It's all caps here. In December of 1999, Kurskowski approved Seattle's application. Seattle used the R&B, data from the Roosevelt's parking lot project to show Seattle had experience with using the GIS infrastructure to include individual data. Chief Norm Stamper happily resigned after losing control of the city to both the feds and the highly trained street activities in the WTO battles. The cops director replaced him as Seattle Police Chief in 2000. I went to Stamper's retirement party, got pictures of me with the ex-chief. When I sent one with his complaint to Justice Standards, he thought it was the picture of me and my dad. Over the next year, I filed numerous requests with the Seattle Strategy Planning Office for Compass records and notes. Folks, it is so important for you to get out of cities. Get out. Get out. It's part of their stack and pack deals too, folks. One of the Dawson's clients, Jerry Dawson, convinced me to attend a conference privately council meeting in June 2001. There were 8 city employees in attendance. Number one on their meeting agenda was how to answer public disclosure requests. Afterwards, the mayor's attorney assured me the only way Compass files would be used individually was to help people find jobs. It's always an excuse. Compass had just recently obtained previous strictly confidential unemployment records. That's none of their business, folks. None of their business. None of their damn business. Seattle stakeholders fought my research every step of the way. I had better luck with the Department of Justice. Somebody at the DOJ in DC just went ahead and mailed me the copies of Seattle application free of charge. Seattle Compass grant application was missing the privacy laws, you see, in that particular area. So how hard it was to reject his offer to find a way to help with a program that offers such hefty grants. See, this is what it's all. This money is coming from everywhere. It's coming from these people well off who want to control this planet. They stole it all from us in the first place. You see, we are the creditors in this country, folks. We're not the debtors. Anyway, there were billions of dollars available for consultants in the crime-mapping field. There's no money in trying to stop Compass or any communitarian program. There's not one organization in the entire United States that funds anti-communitarian research. There isn't. Although the ACL is building evidence to support the idea, that's the American Civil Liberty, I guess it's ACL. I don't know, maybe not. Hold out on that. For years later, 2006, I'm still broke and hungry because of what attorneys Jose Herrera's co-counsel for the Dawson clients told me was the courage of my convictions. During Bill's visit, I allowed him to make copies of my Compass binding. I never did find out what he used them for. In 2004, he was teaching a criminal justice class in New York. He assigned his master's candidate students to do a report on our online anti-communitarian thesis. I waited a year for his students' reports. Bill eventually responded that we did a great job on the website. He never mentioned those reports. You can't trust people too, can you? The Compass database is but one of many ways the global government can utilize your information in the GIS. I just found the notes on Jack Smith and Gene Keating. It's researching on prisoner bonds, not the kind you bail out with, though. www.cits.com is the criminal justice tracking system software that Metro Police Departments use. It's all tracked from beginning to end. Lynn Schmaltz, SCHMALTZ, owner of the Prison Systems in America. That is at the American Bulletin. The importance of utilizing the GIS is explained by Global Vision's sustainable city formula that is a zero population growth, folks. Sustainable City is an international collaboration research endeavor to develop the world's first GIS information, that is geographic information system, to be put into computers and to simulate a program for the use in the future. They will know everything about you, you see. And that is my conclusion now, chapter 4. So I appreciate you being here. I'm going to take another break. Again, I hope that this is eye-opening for you. I hope that you will investigate this wherever you are. If you're in the United States, it's all occurring in the Europe, folks. It's there. I have some friends in Europe, and it's enormously already becoming a system. I have a friend who is in Denmark, who you're no longer allowed to use cash in that country. You see, and what is that all about, Brent? It's about tracking you. Even though the cash is not worth anything, the key simply is this. When you're not able to buy anything on cash, you have to use some type of other system. They will charge you tax on everything you buy. Everything. And you will give them that information because you don't have any cash anymore. That's the line in the sand, folks. You never give them cash. You never allow them to do what they're trying to do. These people are sick maniacs. They are so sick they want to rule over you. And they've got minions, that is people who are willing to do this, to actually cause harm to others when those people have done nothing to them for a job, to make some money, you see. Is that your God? Money? It looks like that's your God, because that's what you're doing, and you're causing harm to your own families. You see, you're causing harm to your own um, friends and neighborhoods, and yet you don't have the guts to say no to it. You see. Anyway, thank you for being here, and I hope that you will pass this information to others so that others can educate themselves deeply in this issue that's taking place. We are actually at war, and we're at war in a way that no one in the past has ever been. In other words, when you think about a battle, you have the right flank and the left flank, and you have the center. But the problem is simply this, folks, you have to have a omni, you have to have like a completely circle wagon, so to speak. You have to have all of it protected in a way because they're coming after you because you're seen as the enemy. So they must know that we have some power, don't they? Key is to not consent to their power at all. Stand against their system. This is it, folks. This is the whole thing. And if you read anything about Alexander Solzhenitsyn, this will make even Alexander Solzhenitsyn, when he talks about the gulags, it will be far worse than that, folks. So thank you again. Appreciate you being here. You have a good day, and hopefully, and maybe tonight I'll actually share some more of this particular book. And again, please, please, please do what you've got to do, but have ears to hear and have eyes to see. Thank you. Have a good day.